Welcome to this week's episode of the Cover 2 podcast. We are not live this week. We are back crammed in the studio. I am Nick Nenad.
And I'm Jared Smith.
On today's podcast, we're going to be talking a lot of NFL, specifically Jeff Fisher finally getting fired. And we're also going to talk about the Cowboys with a big loss to the Giants this weekend. The Ravens falling to the Patriots in a big playoff matchup sort of game. And also the Chiefs and Raiders big Thursday night game where the Chiefs got the win. We're also going to do another Do You Care segment. And we are also going to be talking about MLB free agency and a couple of trades that happened last week. This is the Cover 2 podcast. On the other side of the break, we'll be talking Jeff Fisher getting fired.
I'm Britt Johnson. So we have some breaking news for you. The moment you have all been waiting for. Jeff Fisher has officially been fired from the Rams. Woo woo! Dance party.
You know, you can't put a mediocre product on the field out here, as you saw yesterday.
Will you go to the games now?
Of course I go now.
We were laughing.
I was thinking this coach should have been fired.
Gone for 22 years, there was such high hopes when the Rams returned to L.A.
If you were the owner, what would you have done?
Might have done the same thing.
So we're going to get started today talking about the NFL, and of course, we have to start with the firing of Jeff Fisher. My man Nick over here has been itching ever since this breaking news came out to get on the air and talk about this, so I'm going to let you fire away, my friend.
Oh, here we go. Jeff Fisher finally fired. I was very happy yesterday when a couple of people texted me, including Jared here, that Fisher had been fired. You know, it was a long time coming, to be honest. The guy needed to be fired. He had never had a winning season in L.A. or St. Louis. He's not a good coach. I think he tied the most losses ever in NFL history for a head coach right after they got blown completely out of the water against the Falcons in L.A. this weekend. But, you know, just a long time coming. There was a lot of people that were scrutinizing him. There was a lot of mismanagement with the whole him getting an extension. It wasn't even the front office that released that. It was Fisher's agents and him that released that. So I don't know where that goes. But you know what? It was just a long time coming. I'm happy. I'm not even 100% really a Rams fan. Being in L.A., you don't want the teams to be mediocre. And that's what the Rams are right now. So, you know, now they'll get a new coach, and we'll see. It's a kind of a restart in L.A. This year, we didn't get a team back in L.A., and then next year we'll get a team back in L.A., to be honest.
Yeah, it's kind of I don't know. It's like you know, USC is still LA's team.
Oh, totally.
This was a complete disaster. Even in the preseason, you could tell that the Rams weren't necessarily going to be that good of a team, nope. But there was still that kind of I don't know that people wanted to come out and still see them. But after the way that they started, and then Jared Goff didn't get to play until pretty much these last couple games. The surprising thing, well, it's not surprising, but the Rams, a few weeks ago, did they not sign Jeff Fisher to a 2-year extension?
Yeah.
So they're pretty much fooling everyone by saying, all right, we're going to give you an extension, and then here we are 2 weeks later, and he's now fired. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not really sure what this Rams organization is doing. I think they've got everyone right now at a loss, and they need to regroup this offseason and find a stable head coach, whether it is Jim Harbaugh, like Eric Dickerson has mentioned multiple times, or if it's someone else. But they need a stable head coach. They need to give Jared Goff the entire offseason to be the starting quarterback, and then go from there. Hopefully Todd Gurley can come back and have a bounce-back year, because for his talents, he had a poor year.
Oh, and Todd Gurley's just been lighting up the team the last couple of days with the media. He said the offense is run like a middle school offense. But personally, I had a middle school offense, and our middle school offense was better than the Rams.
Yeah. It is. I mean, the thing is the Rams have talent, especially on defense. Offensively, you know, other than Jared Goff, who we still don't really know much about, but you have Todd Gurley. Tavon Austin is a very, very good slot receiver. But on defense, you have a lot of young talent, and it's almost like they're just wasting. They just wasted a season, because this isn't. No offense, but this isn't, you know, the Cleveland Browns or the San Francisco 49ers.
No, offense to the Cleveland Browns. Okay,
Trying to be nice over here, and Nick's just being very blunt about it. So, yes, okay, offense to them. But, no, I don't think that the Rams are actually as bad as the 49ers or the Cleveland Browns, but their record is showing that, and the way that they're playing is showing that. So it'll be very interesting to see what they do this week. I'm not exactly sure who the Rams are playing, but with the firing of their head coach, are they going to come out and then are they going to play tough and inspired, or are they just going to keep their heads, sunk?
Well, I'll let you know who they're playing this week. And they're on a short week. They're playing on Thursday against Seattle.
Oh,
in
boy.
Seattle.
You can chalk up that loss right now.
So they're going to be 4-10 after that game. But I want to get back to just the whole debacle with the contract extension and all that stupid stuff that happened like 2 weeks ago. Dickerson goes and meets Kevin Demoff, the COO of the team. He goes and says, I don't want Fisher to be coach. Are you signing him to an extension? Demoff doesn't know what he doesn't know. He doesn't give him an answer. And Dickerson essentially says, well, I'm not going to be on the sidelines for any of the games anymore. I'm not coming to the games until he's fired. And so now we hear that, he's getting fired. So what happened with the extension? Is it severance pay? Is it like a goodbye gift for being a mediocre coach for 5 years? It makes no sense. I feel like this Rams front office needs to be held accountable for just the debacle they caused this season. Because like you said, it's like we wasted the season. The Rams wasted the season. They have defensive players like Aaron Donald and Ogletree and Robert Quinn and T.J. McDonald. I mean, I could go on. The whole lineup is good. So you have guys like that are stars, and you're wasting them. And everyone was ready to come back to L.A. and getting back into L.A. football and stuff. And it was good. They were 3-1. Remember, they beat the Seahawks in the home opener. They beat the Cardinals. That's when they became 3-1 on the season. They look really good. They look like they were actually dominating, and I say that with air quotes, dominating the NFC West. They've won one game since they beat the Cardinals.
Yikes.
So, and the Cardinals are not a good team this season. So it just chalks up. Fisher needed to be fired. That needed to happen way earlier in the season. But I think the front office needs to be held accountable. What do you think?
I do think in the offseason some front office personnel will be fired. Mm-hmm. Not exactly sure, but the owner does need to sit down and take a hard look and say, okay, do I still want to keep this entire team intact, or do we need to break it up and bring some fresh bodies, fresh minds in here? Going back to Jeff Fisher for just a minute, I was kind of doing a little bit of research and looking up his coaching record history. So Jeff Fisher, for his 22 years of head coaching experience, he has 173 wins and 165 losses. He is tied with former NFL head coach Dan Reeves for the most losses by an NFL head coach.
He's getting bailed out. He's not going to break the record. Watch. He's not going to break the record.
I don't believe so. And with the Rams, in the 5 years that he's been with the Rams, he has an overall record of 31 wins and 45 losses.
It's terrible.
Ridiculous. So the fact that they even, like going back to what Nick was saying, how they can even give him a contract extension when you have 14 more losses than you do wins under your history with the Rams, it blows my mind. It makes no sense. If I'm the owner, I'm the day, that Monday, that, what do they call it, Black Monday in the NFL? Yeah, that Black Monday, there's going to be a lot of vacancies in the Rams front office.
There's going to be a lot of firings. And it's Stan Kroenke you're talking about, the owner. Moved the team out of L.A., or to L.A., from St. Louis. He, I think I'm pretty sure he was a Jeff Fisher guy, too. He trusted Fisher. And to be honest, like I mentioned, it looked like the Rams were going to have a pretty solid season. Like, I don't think Fisher's getting fired if they're 8-8 or 9-7, or if they're in the playoff hunt still, because they easily could be. I mean, the teams that are right outside the playoffs are 7-5 and 7-6. Okay, if the Rams were there, nobody would be talking about Fisher getting fired. It's just the fact that they've just been, and they looked horrible. They were losing 42-0 against Atlanta this week. And that was, I believe, pretty early in the fourth quarter, too. Goff looked horrible. I think he threw, 3 interceptions, a terrible fumble. So, no, they just looked bad. But, so, Jared, what happens to teams that are bad, usually, after the season? They get a good draft pick, right?
Usually.
Yeah, they usually get a good draft pick.
You would think.
So the Rams being at 4-9, 4-10 because they're gonna lose to Seattle this week. Being at 4-10, they're gonna get a draft pick, right? No, because they traded 7 draft picks for Jared Goff. Was that worth it? No, because Goff is not going to be good for another 2 years at least, even if he ever becomes good. So a total waste. It reminds me a little bit of the Lakers, what they did with Dwight Howard and Steve Nash. You trade away all these draft picks. Now, luckily, they're kind of becoming sort of a solid team. They have a bad record now, but it reminds me of the Lakers where you trade away all those draft picks and you're relying on, being horrible and being like the top 3 worst teams to even get a draft pick. The Rams, that's not what happens in the NFL. You just don't get the draft picks. So they're in some trouble right now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I still have hope that Jared Goff can, if he has a full offseason, knowing he's going to be the starter under his belt, I think that he will be able to produce a lot better than he has this season so far. I think it was a very awkward situation. I don't think Jeff Fisher wanted to play Goff at all this year. I think he wanted to sit him on the bench for the entire year. But after they kind of had a roller coaster where they started 3-1 and when they took a huge nosedive, I think he had no other choice but to play Goff. So I'm not saying I would have given up all of those draft picks to get Goff, but I still want to hold out. He was number 1 draft pick for a reason. He's got a cannon of an arm. I think the kid is pretty smart. If he can just get a full offseason, get his head completely in the playbook, then, hopefully he can do good things. I will point out that a reason why certain players, especially quarterbacks, sometimes get deemed as busts, maybe, Alex Smith, who actually has revitalized his career a little bit in Kansas City. But I want to point out that when you have when teams fire their head coaches, a lot of times they take their entire personnel with them, and then a whole new coaching staff comes in. So with Alex Smith, I believe when he got drafted by the 49ers, it's either the first 4 out of the 5 years that he was with them, he had a different offensive coordinator. Now, that's very, very tough to be able to learn a new playbook every offseason and go out and execute the lingo. So at the end of the day, these guys are getting paid and they're professionals and they need to go out and do their jobs.
Yeah.
But you also want to give them consistency. Look at Tom Brady. Look at Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
How long were those guys with the same coordinators? You know what I mean? So you need to be able to have consistency and a certain comfort with an offensive coordinator and a head coach, because when you're just getting, when they're throwing guys at you and they're throwing different playbooks at you, eventually it's like, what do you expect the kid to do? He's still young.
Well, I totally agree. That's a great point. What the Rams playbook was this year was not a playbook.
No.
So a little bit he's almost bailed out in that way where like he didn't have to learn this complex system with the Rams. Jeff Fisher was known to be kind of a conservative coach on offense. So I think he'll be fine if some offensive guru comes in and tries to teach him a complex system. But no, I'm not calling Jared Goff a bust. I'm just saying, was he worth 7 draft picks when your team's bad? No. Like I said, maybe if the Rams are in the playoff hunt and they get the 16th draft pick, you're not worried about it because you're like, well, whatever, that we have talent. But with no offensive players, to be honest, besides Todd Gurley, they're in trouble, and they need as many draft picks as they can, and they need to go out and sign some free agents or something like that because they're not very good right now. Moving on to the last topic about the Rams, you did mention this way earlier in this conversation, that Eric Dickerson said yesterday that he wanted Jim Harbaugh to be coach. There have been other people that have been talking about Harbaugh as a coach, so that Eric Dickerson isn't just throwing that out of the water. Obviously, I don't think Harbaugh has answered to any of this. This has been kind of going on for the last 3 or 4 days with the Harbaugh rumors. But what would you think about Jim Harbaugh coming over, and do you think he'll come over to the Rams?
I think it's very, very intriguing. I think in the back of Jim Harbaugh's mind, I do think that he wants another shot at the NFL. Mm-hmm. The fact that he got so close, he took the 49ers to the Super Bowl and eventually lost to the Baltimore Ravens. But he had that taste of victory almost right there, And then unfortunately things didn't work out. He eventually got fired, and now he's in Michigan, and he's completely turned that program around. So, wow, if he could go to the Rams, the guru, that he is, and the way that he can develop quarterbacks, man, for Jared Goff, that would have to be just that would be the best situation for Jared Goff. Do I see it happening? No, because I think Harbaugh has something special going on with Michigan, and he is a Michigan alum. He was a quarterback at Michigan, so I think he wants to probably stay there, get a chance to beat Ohio State, get into the Final Four playoffs, and see if he can make a run at that. So do I see it for this season or this upcoming season? Unfortunately not. But I think it's very intriguing, and I definitely think he'll take a hard look at it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't think he'll come over at least next year. Maybe you think 2018 possibly with him coming in. But I've known with head coaches in the NFL, you never know, and even in college. We saw what Tom Herman did to Houston this year, where he says the day before during his game, there are absolutely no rumors that I'm going to Texas, and literally 16 hours later, he was on a bus to Austin, Texas to be the head coach of the Texas Longhorns. So anything can happen with these coaches, and especially with a guy like Tim Harbaugh. I could see him just kind of leaving in the middle of the night. Imagine Harbaugh with that defense, though. Oh, man. I mean, the Michigan defense right now, every single player on their starting defense made the Big Ten teams, the first team, the second team, and the third team. So he knows how to coach a defense for sure. I think the Rams, although obviously Jim Harbaugh is a great candidate, they'll be interesting to see who they make the intern. They made the interim coach. I think it's Jim Fassel.
Yeah, their special teams coach.
Special team coach. We'll see how he does. I doubt he'll be named the head coach, even if a guy like Harbaugh is on the docket. But it should be interesting to see who they get. But I think they definitely need an offensive guy.
Yes,
100%.
I agree.
They need an offensive guy. That defense can deal with a bad defensive coordinator. That's how good they are.
Yes, or not to say that it would be a bad defensive coordinator, but I think they need more help on the offensive side of the ball to where the defense is a little more set. So I think they bring in the likes, an offensive guru, and then he entrusts his defensive coordinator to say, hey, listen, I'm going to let you take this defense and you run with it. I need to worry about the offense right now. So Rams, do not go out and hire Rex Ryan because he's about to get fired by the Bills. Do not do it. If they do that, then that just shows me that their owner has no idea what the heck he's doing. And the Rams might as well stay in their bunker because they're not coming out of it anytime soon.
No, definitely. Very interesting week with the Rams. We're actually going to take a break. We'll be right back with the rest of the NFL talk. We went a little long with the Rams talk. So we'll be right back with Cowboys, Chiefs, and Pats talk.
They know how to win down the stretch. Now, they're going to need a little bit of help, but they're dangerous. And they're going to need a healthy number 12, and I guess we'll learn in time as to just how serious that injury might be.
Congratulations to Andy Reid and the Chiefs. That was a monster win.
It's a big win for New England with an eye toward the #1 seed and home field advantage through the playoffs in the AFC, and they take another step toward what will be inevitably their 8th consecutive AFC East title.
So the Giants won on opening day, and they win in week 14.
That last soundbite you heard was Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth talking about the Cowboys losing for the second time this season to the New York Giants. The Cowboys are 11-2, so their only 2 losses on the season are to the Giants. They fell to them 10-7 in one of the bigger games of the weekend. Jared, since you are a Cowboys fan, I will let you take it away.
Yeah, after the loss, obviously I was, a little upset and just shocked by how well the Giants defense was playing, and they made Dak Prescott look like a rookie. He was not able to kind of set his feet in the pocket and have a lot of time to throw. He only threw for 165 yards. He did have a nice touchdown to Terrence Williams in the first half, but he also had 2 interceptions. You just have to give credit to the Giants. But instead of actually roasting the Cowboys, if there's ever such a thing as a good loss, I think this actually might be it. And for this reason, before this game, the Cowboys had come in with 11 straight wins. And like you had mentioned, their only loss was the first game against the Giants. So after 11 straight wins, everyone is pretty much kissing their butts, saying, you guys are America's team again. You have a new set of the triplets with Dez, Ezekiel Elliott, and Prescott. You guys are the best thing since sliced bread. You're the number one in power rankings, all this stuff. So not to say that the Cowboys didn't come out and play hard and want to win, but I think that, they were kind of feeling themselves a little bit. They were getting a little cocky, and you know what? Hey, we've won 11. We're kind of unstoppable right now. So for them to come out and have a pretty bad game, their defense played very well, only giving up 10 points to the Giants. So for their defense, keep doing your thing, but offensively they need to get way better. But I think it was actually good for them to lose now instead of obviously losing in the playoffs or losing the last game of the season, because I think it will refocus them a little bit. They'll get their minds right, and they need to quickly, because this upcoming Sunday night, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are red hot, come into town. So that's going to be a very, very good game, and they're going to need to play a lot better than they did against the Giants in order to win. So, like I said, there's never a good loss, but I think this will refocus them and kind of give them a little, little chip on their shoulder, a little nudge that they needed desperately.
Yeah. Now, I want to state one thing: the Giants are not better than the Cowboys.
No.
They beat them in the first game of the season when they had two rookies playing their first NFL games, and then they beat them, and they kind of showed them that, like you said, they humbled them a little bit, and they beat them in a cold weather, snowing game in New York. Okay, the Cowboys playing a dome in hot weather Texas. It's not easy to go out and play when there's ice on the field. Okay, so the Cowboys are better, but you're right. I think this humbles them a little bit. They were 11-1, and now they're 11-2, with now two teams at 9-4 right behind them, including the Giants. Let's say the Giants win out and the Cowboys lose two more games. Hey man, Giants are the not the number one seed, but they're the division winners
Yes.
for the NFC East. So I think that's probably going to put Jason Garrett's going to come out and tell the team more than likely, hey, we need to win. We need to win these games, and we need to finish the season strong. It doesn't matter that we lost the Giants twice. We lost 2 games on the season. That kind of talk. But the Cowboys are still a very good team. You mentioned to me in one of the breaks a second ago that Sean Lee had like 22 tackles in the game or something ridiculous like that. So the defense is solid. The offense, great. But you know what? They made it interesting in the NFC. It wasn't interesting because the Cowboys were just kind of beating the heck out of everybody, and their record was way better. Now it made it a little interesting. I've always said this too. The playoffs come down to games played in cold weather, because there are some teams that know how to do it, and there's some teams that don't. Historically, the Seattle Seahawks have not played good in cold weather, but they tend to get it done. But they're a very good team, but when they play in super cold weather, they don't play well. Okay? The Cowboys this season have not played super well in cold weather so far. So you have to think about that going into the playoffs, and you have to make sure you get that number 1 seed. So you're in you're in domes, because if say they were getting to the Super Bowl, they'd play in AT&T Stadium and they'd play in Houston's. They'd never even leave Texas. So they need to make sure they get that number 1 seed, so they don't have to go and play a a Seattle in the playoffs, or a Giants in the playoffs on the road. That can't happen if you're the Cowboys. But as far as the game goes, I wouldn't take too much into it. The Cowboys are better. They have talent, and people are going to start these Romo Prescott rumors. That's not true right now. Let's say Prescott has another kind of bad outing. Maybe you start talking about it, because Prescott is a rookie, and they talk about that rookie wall. So you got to think about that a little bit. But no, to me, the Cowboys are fine, but they need to lock up that number 1 seed for sure.
They do, big time.
So we'll move on now to, in my opinion, this was the biggest game of the weekend. It was the Thursday night game between the Chiefs and the Raiders. The Raiders finally lost the game. They're now 10-3. The Chiefs played a great game. They're 10-3 as well, making it very interesting in the AFC. Kansas City, also because they beat the Raiders a lot like the Giants, they beat them twice. Now they are in the driver's seat in the AFC West. The Denver Broncos lost this week as well, so Kansas City really, really controls their own destiny right now. I thought Kansas City looked fantastic. I proclaimed them a Super Bowl contender pretty much halfway through the game, is the way they played. And that's another team I'm looking at the standings right now in the AFC. It's New England at 11-2. We'll talk about New England in a second. Kansas City at 10-3, and Pittsburgh at 8-5, the 3 seeds. What is that? That's all super cold weather games, okay? And I said this about Oakland too. Oakland, because they lost, they are now not in a higher seed. They're not going to get a home game in the playoffs unless obviously the Chiefs lose and they win and they end up winning the AFC West. But if the standings stay the same and the Kansas City just wins out, Oakland will get no better than the 5th or 6th seed. And in my opinion, they have to get the 5th because they have to play either Tennessee or Houston in that first round. Because if they have to go into Pittsburgh and play, or if they have to go into, let's say, Kansas City to play, they're not going to win. Kansas City clearly was better than them this season, or at least has their number. So in my opinion, if you're Oakland, you need to stay with that 5th seed. You need to keep winning. A lot like the Cowboys, it's very similar. The way Derek Carr, he's only played in California his whole life. So high school, college, and now NFL. So like I said, it's tough for a lot of these quarterbacks, and it's 2 young quarterbacks. We're talking about in Prescott and Carr that now have to try to avoid cold weather games.
Yeah, no, that's a great point that you bring up about the cold weather games. Yeah, because the Raiders lost, they are now the 5th seed. They went from being number 1.
Yeah, not good.
Not good at all. Derek Carr with his injury to his finger, I don't think that helped on Thursday night. It was very, very cold. He was wearing a glove, but there were many occasions where he was either overthrowing receivers or he just didn't have that accuracy that you're used to seeing from him. So I think that's definitely going to be a factor. And yes, if they do have to play in cold weather games, he's not going to be able to get that grip on the ball like he normally has. So Kansas City right now is just riding high. Kansas City, they don't really do anything special. They're not flashy. They never really make the headlines for doing, you know what I mean? They just have a solid defense, and the offense does just enough. Andy Reid is doing exactly what he did in Philadelphia. They just continue to win, and constantly. I mean, they're always, obviously the last couple of years, Denver has really been the AFC West team to beat. Mm-hmm. But this year, and even for the last couple of years, Kansas City has always been right there in the hunt. So, like I said, they don't do anything super flashy. They kind of just say, hey, we're going to line up and we're going to play Smash Mouth, and this is how we're going to beat you. And they've been able to do that so far. They've been very, very successful. So I actually do give Kansas City the edge right now. I think they're the second best team in the AFC behind the Patriots. But other than the Patriots, right now, I'm looking at Kansas City as the next team to beat. And obviously, they're used to playing in the cold. It's pretty dang cold in Kansas City. It'll be snowing and, probably below 30. So whatever team has to come and play them at home, good luck.
Well, and think about the loudness of that stadium too.
Oh yes.
They tried to break the decibel record in that game against Oakland. I never saw if they did. I don't think they did. But I think it's them and Seattle and Arizona hold the records for loudest stadiums.
Really? Yeah, I would put New Orleans up there. I think
New Orleans
can get pretty loud as well.
So you don't want to play those types of teams, especially and then the difference between New Orleans, Arizona, and Seattle compared to Kansas City is Kansas City's, well, so is Seattle's is outdoor as well, but it still kind of feels like a dome. Arrowhead's just wide open. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense why that stadium's that loud. Kind of reminds me of Notre Dame Stadium. It's super loud because you're kind of compact in there. But yeah, cold weather, super loud, fans can't hear anything you're saying. That's not what you want to do. And the first 3 seeds in the AFC right now are that type of team. Moving on to a team you just mentioned, the other team that is really good in the AFC West, that's the New England Patriots. And they played in Monday Night Football, and they beat a good Ravens team. They beat, I believe the score was 30-23. And the Patriots just, they just won the game. They figured out how to win. And Baltimore, who was in a playoff position, a good playoff position before the game, is now the 8th seed. They're not in the playoffs. They're 7-6. They had a chance to be 8-5 and really put the pressure on Pittsburgh. That's not what's happening now. And New England kind of solidified themselves as the AFC West leader. What did you see from New England that impressed you?
You know what? It's the way that Tom Brady spreads the ball around. I'm looking at the kind of game summary right here. he spreads the ball around to all his different receivers. He had Chris Hogan had 5 receptions for 129 yards and a touchdown.
I think most of that came on that one long pass.
It did,
too.
yes. James White, running back, had 3 receptions for 81 yards. Julian Edelman had 7 receptions for 73 yards. Michael Bennett, the tight end who's replacing Rob Gronkowski, who is more than likely out for the rest of the year, had 4 catches for 70 yards. And Mitchell, their rookie receiver, had 4 receptions for 41 yards. So they just continue, Tom Brady continues to just spread the ball around with whoever is on the field. To be honest, other than Michael Bennett, Julian Edelman is a great slot receiver, but other than Bennett, I wouldn't really call any of those players, types of players that I would need to game plan for specifically. Yeah. They're not Antonio Browns, they're not Des Bryants or Julio Jones, but they find ways to make plays, and for me, that's really it. Tom Brady is in full control of that offense, and as long as he's under center, I really can't pick against the Patriots, at least unless we're talking about the Cowboys. But until we get there, I'm going to have to continue to roll with the Patriots. I will say also that Baltimore came in with the number 1 overall defense, and Brady was able to throw for just over 400 yards. So it just continues to amaze me. Tom Brady's almost 40 years old, and he's out here having one of the best seasons of his career.
Yeah, no, it's just they just keep winning, and even they didn't do. You mentioned that they did spread the ball a lot, but still, they did nothing special. I mean, besides 2 big plays with James White on a slant across the middle where he got a lot of yards, and the Chris Hogan wide open touchdown pass, they didn't do anything special. They didn't, they didn't dominate the game or anything like that. And Baltimore may have had a chance to win, but they just find ways to make big plays all the time. It's amazing. Belichick's just a genius. Brady knows how to play in the system. That goes all the way back to what we were talking about with Goff, too. They're so used to each other with that system that this kind of stuff happens. I liked, you pull up those stats, that he completed passes to 3 different running backs. LeGarrette Blount, I love to see Dion Lewis up there, too, because he's been injured the last couple of years with some bad injuries. And then James White with a couple catches. So, like you said, he spreads the ball. They have receivers that no one would ever want, to be honest. And it's just... They know how to win, and that's why it's so scary. And they're going to be, more than likely, they're going to have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. So, they're in business. More about Baltimore, though, since we kind of know what we're going to get with New England. What do you think this does to the AFC North? Does this put Pittsburgh in the driver's seat, or do you think Baltimore still has a chance?
I'm not going to discount or kind of put Baltimore completely aside, but I do think Pittsburgh is in the driver's seat in that AFC North right now. The way that they're playing, Le'Veon Bell, I believe he had 3 touchdowns last week. He is on fire right now. You've got Antonio Brown and Big Ben, who has lots of experience in the playoffs. So, yeah, right now I'm going to go with Pittsburgh atop the AFC North, and I'm going to put Baltimore at number 2. But I'm not sure that Baltimore will be able to make it in the playoffs.
Big game Christmas Day, Ravens and Steelers on, I believe it's Sunday night, it's on the NFL Network. So
yeah, I don't think they will be exchanging gifts.
No, those 2 teams hate each other. So there is a chance. I believe the Baltimore plays the Eagles next week, so there's a good chance that they come in and they're 1 game back. So obviously they can beat Pittsburgh, but still, again, Pittsburgh just kind of controls their own destiny if they just win. And even, I believe I don't know if the Steelers beat the Ravens earlier this season, but I think even if they lose to the Ravens, they could still get in. Either way, that's 2 tough teams in that 3rd spot in the AFC West, because whoever's coming out of the AFC South isn't too good. So no matter what, you're getting some good teams in the playoffs with Baltimore or Pittsburgh. All right, last topic for the NFL segment. Moving back to the NFC, a game that I feel like a lot of people didn't see. It was Green Bay and Seattle. And Green Bay absolutely torched the Seattle Seahawks. I believe this is the first time, this is only the 2nd time in Russell Wilson's career that he's lost by more than 10 points, which is amazing in itself. But he lost by 28. Let me see this, 5 interceptions from Russell Wilson. I feel like they won't care too much about this game, and they'll just kind of throw it under the bus. I think the bigger topic of this game is Green Bay has been hot for the last 2 weeks. And I feel like they're getting hot at the perfect time. They're trying to make the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers is coming back. He is playing well, although he's kind of banged up. I think he has 2 different injuries right now.
He did. I believe he kind of either re-injured or injured his calf.
Yeah.
In that game.
So, you're dealing with that. But it just looks like Green Bay's kind of back to what they were the last couple years. What do you think?
Yeah, no, Aaron Rodgers is looking like Aaron Rodgers right now, and that is scary for the rest of the NFL. He only threw for 246 yards, which in today's NFL isn't a whole lot. Seattle's defense is very, very good, even though they are now without Earl Thomas for the rest of the year. But yeah, no, Aaron Rodgers is just, he's also one of those quarterbacks that is able to kind of spread the ball out to multiple receivers. I do think Green Bay has a lot of talented receivers. Devontae Adams, Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, and Ty Montgomery, who has really been the jack-of-all-trades guy. Earlier in the season when Eddie Lacy and James Starks were out, Ty Montgomery, who is a receiver and returner for this team, was actually playing starting running back for a few games. So they've got him. You have Jared Cook, their versatile tight end, who doesn't get used a whole lot, but he's a mismatch for a lot of defenders. So, like you mentioned, the Packers are coming on very hot at the right time. It's actually going to be a pretty good fight between them and the Lions, who are very, very surprisingly leading
they're
the
9-4,
NFC
so they're 2
North.
games above Green Bay as well.
Yes, and I believe did the Lions already beat Green Bay earlier this year?
I think so.
I believe they did. I would guess they have one more game to play. That's in the next couple weeks coming up. But Green Bay's hot right now. And yeah, for Seattle, I don't want to blow it out of proportion. I don't care who you are. When you turn the ball over 5 times or more in a game in the NFL, you're more than likely going to lose.
Yeah, that's
so
horrible.
Russell Wilson needs to be able to control the ball more. Spread the ball around, be a little more accurate. Potentially use his legs. I think he's finally getting healthier from that ankle injury that kind of hindered him at the beginning of the year. So it's not a complete loss, but still somewhat alarming that they kind of got whooped by a good Packers team.
Well, yeah, and not a good thing, especially since you lose Earl Thomas the game before, to go out and give up 38 points. Now, a lot of that had to do with turning the ball over a ton of times, but still, this Seattle defense is not supposed to do that. They're not supposed to give up that many points, especially to a team that's been kind of struggling all season in Green Bay. They have been hot, but still, as you mentioned, Rodgers didn't have 250 yards in the game. He threw 3 touchdowns, but he didn't have 250 yards. So it's not like they got torched by him in the game either. A little disconcerting with Russell Wilson, too, because he's been kind of on and off this year. I still think Seattle is still one of the best teams in the league. But, if they get in the playoffs and they start doing this kind of stuff, they're not going to get too far. I mean, they really shouldn't have got past the first round last year, Seattle. If it weren't for Blair Walsh just being incompetent as a kicker in that really, really cold game in Minnesota, they would have been eliminated, and then they got obliterated by Carolina the next week. So, they haven't been too shabby in the playoffs the last couple of years. They lost in the Super Bowl. They barely beat Minnesota, and then they lost to Carolina as well, and now they're losing to some other good teams in the NFC this season. So they need to step it up. Green Bay, they need to win every single game for the rest of the season, or they're not making playoffs because Detroit is too far up in the standings. Should be interesting, though, when they play each other. I don't see Detroit winning out, so this will come down to the last few games. But if I had to tab a team that's not in the playoffs right now that will make the playoffs, it's definitely Green Bay. On the other side of these ridiculous sound bites, we will play another great edition of Do You Care?
Apparently, there's no crying or dresses in baseball. Major League Baseball has created an anti-hazing and anti-bullying policy outlawing the hazing ritual of players.
The winner is Lamar Jackson of University of Louisville.
Oh, I'm sorry, y'all. This crazy right now for me, man. Oh, snap. I'm shaking right now. I got to get my speech up. I'm sorry.
Well, after listening to all those ridiculous sound bites of stuff you have no idea of, It is time for another edition of Do You Care? Jared is going to get asked the first question today. Jared, do you care that Deshaun Kaiser is going to the draft?
I don't care because I'm actually not a fan of
Notre Dame. Makes sense.
Notre Dame and or just about any of these quarterbacks that are potentially coming out this year. Other than Deshaun Watson of Clemson, I don't really see any of these guys making it or having a successful career in the NFL. Deshaun Kaiser is more of an athletic type quarterback who I'm not sure his throwing skills and his accuracy will translate to the NFL, much like the newly crowned Heisman winner Lamar Jackson. I don't see their skill sets transferring to the NFL. So good for him. I'm sure he will be a number one or number 2 round draft pick, but I don't necessarily see it for him, unfortunately. Nick, do you care that UCLA basketball is ranked number 2 in the nation?
I do care. UCLA basketball is back. Pauley Pavilion was sold out the other night for the first time in a while. Lots of celebrities there. This team is really good, led by Lonzo Ball, TJ Leaf, Bryce Alford, the coach's son, Isaac Hamilton. They're stacked. They beat Kentucky the other day pretty handily. So I think they should be a Final Four team. If they can do this the whole season, they're very entertaining to watch. So I'm happy for them. Number 2 in the nation is good. They deserve that ranking. I think the only team ahead of them is Villanova. But it's a fun team to watch, and I urge anybody to go out to Pauley Pavilion and watch one of those games. Jared, do you care that Lamar Jackson won the Heisman this weekend?
Yes, I do care because I think it was well deserved. There were a few other players, such as Jabril Peppers, who obviously made a case as a defensive stud. You have Deshaun Watson, who was also a finalist last year. Unfortunately, now he's 0 for 2. But for Lamar Jackson, the stats that he put up this year are just unreal. He completed 58% of his passes for over 3,000 yards. He had 30 total touchdowns with 9 interceptions. He ran the ball for over 1,500 yards, and he had 21 touchdowns running. He ran for 1,500. What is he? Was he like a full-time running back? It's ridiculous. He's the 3rd player in FBS history with 30 passing touchdowns and 20 rushing touchdowns in the same season. The only other 2 players to do that, Cam Newton and Tim Tebow. And guess what? They both also won the Heisman.
Yep.
So, yes, very, very well deserved. Unfortunately, I think his skill set is also kind of like Deshaun Kaiser's, where I'm not sure he'll be able to translate into an NFL quarterback. If he does want to make it to that next level, he might have to become a receiver or another kind of athletic type to make his name in the NFL.
He's youngest Heisman ever at 19 years old, too.
Wow, that is crazy. Nick, do you care that Michael Floyd, your Arizona Cardinal, got a DUI on Monday?
I do care because this guy, normally when you play your contract year season, you ball out, you kick ass, and you have your stats are really good. This season, Floyd decided to drop numerous big-time passes, continually not be a part of the offense, get benched, and now get a DUI after their season essentially ends. I don't know what to say necessarily about Floyd. I hope the Cardinals don't sign him back because he seems more of a problem than a help for the team. I hope he gets help for what happened, but it's just ridiculous. I heard he was lying to police when he was arrested about what he was doing. He was asleep at the wheel. So it's just ridiculous. The guy has had a horrible season, and I guess it just got to his head that his contract was coming up, but I could contribute to him to one of the big reasons why the Cardinals didn't have a successful season this year. Jared, do you care that Derek Carr said he'd help out Johnny Manziel?
Nah, not really. I mean, it's a nice gesture by Derek Carr. He's a stand-up guy. He wants. I don't think he was doing this for publicity reasons at all. I think he actually has a genuine heart and really wants to help Johnny Manziel. Unfortunately, I don't think Mr. Manziel wants to get the help or is ready to get the help. I think if anything, yeah, he wants to probably get back into the NFL, but does he want to make a consistent effort to actually help himself as a person? No, I don't think so, because I'm pretty sure he's still out there partying and drinking and doing his thing. And he did show up to the Heisman ceremony, and apparently he was relatively there. It didn't seem like he was, drunk or making a fool of himself. But I don't think that Manziel is serious enough to want to help himself. So for Derek Carr, I think he would just be wasting his time and efforts, unfortunately. So, no, do not care about that one. But I do hope Manziel one day realizes that he does need help, and hopefully he can get himself back on track. Nick, do you care that next year the NFL will hold 4 games in London?
I don't care that much because I don't watch those games because they're super early for us here on the West Coast. I think those games are totally biased towards the East Coast because essentially that's the only people that are going to wake up that early to watch those games. The one thing I wanted to say about it was that the Rams are giving away a home game to play in London, and they're taking the Cardinals with them to go play that game. Other than that, the 4 games are terrible. I believe it's the Browns that are involved in the game, the Dolphins are involved in the game, Jaguars. It's just not good and entertaining teams, and along with the Rams who aren't entertaining as well. So no, I don't really care. I don't watch the games, so let them play in London. Let them play the whole season in London if they want. Jared, do you care that Lane Kiffin, former USC head coach and current Alabama offensive coordinator, just got hired to be the head coach at Florida Atlantic University, the Owls?
I do care because what the heck is Florida Atlantic doing hiring Lane Kiffin? You know what? I'm sorry I have to say that, but I think there are some coaches who are just better suited as being coordinators than as being head coaches. Let me break it down. When you're a head coach, even though Lane Kiffin is more of an offensive guru, you now have to take some of your responsibilities away from the offense, and you have to go into those defensive meeting rooms, and you have to go into those special teams meeting rooms, and you have to go recruit, and all this other stuff on top of it. You can't just sit with the offense all day, and, you're not going to get these Alabama kids anymore. You're going to be getting, 2-star recruits, kids that aren't even recruited.
He's going to hate that.
Yeah, and you know what? Obviously, you have to. The coaching carousel. It's just a recycling process. So once you make it, sometimes if it doesn't work out as being a head coach, you do what Lane Kiffin did. You go back to being an offensive coordinator. You kind of rebuild the fire. You know what I mean? You do good for a couple years, win a national championship, and now all of a sudden you're the hot coach again, right? So you get to revitalize your career a little bit. But I just do want to throw some stats at you. In the few short years that Lane Kiffin has actually been a head coach. In 2007, he was the head coach of the Oakland Raiders. For the entire season, he went 4-12. In 2008, he was fired after just 4 games. He went 1-3. Went back to college, the college level. Got hired with Tennessee. Was there for 1 season. Went 7-6. Then in 2010, got hired by USC and was actually with them for 3 full seasons, racking up a record of 28-15. And then in 2013, he got fired midway through the year.
Fired on the tarmac at Sky Harbor Airport in Phoenix as well.
Yes, thank you for that. Basically, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm trying to say is I don't think he is a good head coach. I think he is better suited as a coordinator, and I think it would have been better for him to stay with Alabama, win some more national championships instead of going to Conference USA. No offense, Conference USA, but you are not the SEC. You are not Alabama. And Lane Kiffin, you now will have a full plate on your hands. Good luck, sir.
Go Owls.
Yeah. Nick, to finish it off, do you care that the MLB is banning players for dressing as women as part of their new hazing policy?
I don't care because it just doesn't seem like that big of a deal if you're dressing like women or if you're dressing I believe the whole hazing rule was that it's banning players from being kind of discriminating against people, hazing rookies, bullying. It all stems from that stupid Richie Incognito Jonathan Martin thing that is transitioned now down to every single sport. So it's not a big deal. But it is interesting that the MLB kind of called that out as a specific part to not do. I don't know what that means. I don't know what they're trying to say, but it's interesting. But I don't care. It doesn't matter for my favorite teams, the Dodgers or Angels or anything like that. Dodgers like to do that kind of stuff, but I think they'll still be fine without dressing their rookies like women. On that note, we are going to transition directly to the MLB on the other side of these couple of sound bites. A lot of free agent signings. Big-time signings for the Dodgers, the Cardinals, and some big trades involving the Washington Nationals. So we'll be right back with some MLB talk.
After failing to execute a trade for Chris Sale, the White Sox and Nationals had better luck with Adam Eaton. The outfielder heads to Washington in exchange for 3 of the Nationals' top 6 prospects.
And in case you've been living under a rock, the big news today, Chris Sale reportedly traded to the Boston Red Sox. We'll spare you the Chris Sale and David Price puns.
The Dodgers brought back 2 key members of their 2016 NL West title squad on Monday after Kenley Jansen agreed to terms on a reported 5-year, $80 million deal. Third baseman Justin Turner also came to an agreement on a reported 4-year, $64 million deal later in the day.
As you guys know, the MLB winter meetings just finished, and that means there was a lot of trades and a lot of big free agent signings. Now, this offseason wasn't the best for big free agents getting signed this season, but there have been a lot that were talked about a lot. There was also a huge trade involving the Red Sox, and we'll talk about that in a second. But we wanted to start off on the Dodgers signing both Kenley Jansen and Justin Turner to $16 million a year deals. Yesterday, it happened so recently, so we want to talk about it first. Obviously, there had been rumors that the Dodgers were not going to be able to sign both guys. And there had been rumors that they definitely weren't going to sign Kenley Jansen. They might actually lose both. And then Andrew Friedman comes out yesterday, and he signs both of them and just says kind of F you to anybody that said that they weren't going to be able to get him. There had been luxury tax issues with the Dodgers, saying the MLB essentially said you can't sign those guys, and they did anyways. So the Dodgers they know they have to stack a roster to beat teams like the Cubs. And I think that's what they're doing. In my opinion, with the guys coming back from injury, they have the best rotation in the MLB. They now have not lost anybody besides Howie Kendrick and Chase Utley, who were platoon players anyways in the offseason. So they've improved a lot just by getting guys back from injury. I think the Dodgers are really going to be good next year. What do you think, Jared?
I do. I agree. I think the Dodgers are the Yankees of the West. As far as, we will, we don't care about luxury tax. We don't care about the price.
Screw the luxury tax.
Pretty much. If we want a player, we're going to throw money at him, and we're going to throw more money than any other team can offer. I think, when you have the likes of Magic Johnson and all these other co-owners, coming in and from different, backgrounds, they're being able to give their input and their knowledge, and they're saying, listen, money's not a factor. We want to win championships. The money will come back to us if we win championships, like the Yankees have been able to do. So, yes, I do definitely agree with you. I think they are the team to beat in the NL, and especially in their division in the NL West. I think having Hansen back, it just kind of solidifies their bullpen. $80 million a year. That's I believe that's $4 million more than any other reliever has gotten so far. So that is a huge signing for them, as well as bringing Justin Turner back to kind of solidify another position for them. So just to piggyback off what you were saying, I definitely think the Dodgers are the team to beat in the NL West, and they're going to be on top for a while.
Yeah, no, the Dodgers they did a good job signing these guys, but what was cool is that I heard that both guys took less money to come back to the Dodgers. Jansen specifically, you mentioned that Jansen was the highest paid reliever. It's incorrect. Chapman just got signed, I believe, for like $100 million or something like that. So they were banking. That's one of the reasons why people didn't think that the Dodgers were going to be able to sign Jansen, because they thought Jansen was going to ask for that much money. Apparently, because the Nationals just lost Mark Melancon to that team in San Francisco that I'm not going to mention. Since they lost Melancon to them, they were going to try to sign Kenley Jansen. Apparently, they offered Jansen $100 million, and he said, "No, I want to go back to the Dodgers for 80." So, that's a good show of trust to this this front office of the Dodgers that's stacked with like 7 or 8 GMs on it. It shows that the players want to play for a manager like Dave Roberts, who won Manager of the Year. They want to play for a front office that's willing to put a winning team out on the field every year. And you mentioned it. In my opinion, I think the Dodgers are the favorites in the NL. Although the Cubs are very, very good, Dodgers were 2 games away from beating them in the playoff series. So it's not like the Dodgers got swept or they lost in the first round last year. No, they got pretty close, and they beat the Cubs in Wrigley Field last season, too. So I think they're going to be very good. I think these were huge signings. There had been rumors that they might try to trade for Brian Dozier. I heard that that's still on the table. So the Dodgers really do not care about this luxury tax the MLB tried to institute with the new CBA. I think the Dodgers are willing to pay for it. Their contract with Time Warner Cable actually gets larger and larger as far as the money they make every year. So they're making more money every year by not showing the Dodgers for 70% of their fans. But that's another topic, and we'll eventually talk about that ridiculous thing that's going on. But so other than the TV deal and other than Vin Scully leaving, the Dodgers season should be pretty good next season. Moving on to the largest move of the offseason so far, it's Chris Sale getting traded to the Boston Red Sox. Sale, who's been one of the best pitchers in the major leagues, one of the best left-handed pitchers in the league, finally gets away from one Sox team and goes to the other. Jared, what are your opinions on superstar Sale going to the Red Sox?
The Red Sox are trying to win right now.
Yep.
I think Chris Sale is he's definitely not underrated, but I don't think he gets talked about in the media as much as some other players do because he was playing with the White Sox. But now that he is with the Red Sox, a team that's kind of more nationally talked about, and they get probably some more nationally televised games, yes, he's going to be the face of the Red Sox, and he's going to be one of the faces of the MLB as a whole. As a left-hander, his stuff is just straight nasty.
It's nasty.
There's no other way to put it. He's I'm not gonna say he's Clayton Kershaw, but he's pretty dang close. They're both lefties, and yeah, he's going to, I think, propel the Red Sox into the playoffs. Not easily, because I think the Yankees do have a better lineup than they did last year so far. But I think that the Red Sox now kind of have that little edge up against the Yankees.
Yeah, the Red Sox roster is absolutely stacked. They also signed Mitch Moreland to be their fill-in for David Ortiz, and I saw some rumors that David Ortiz wanted to come back once the Red Sox signed Sale. That's probably not going to happen, but this lineup, they shouldn't have lost. They shouldn't have got swept to Cleveland last year in the playoffs. That was kind of ridiculous. I don't know why that happened, but it happened. But one of the reasons is because their pitching fell up. They have Rick Porcello, who was a very good pitcher last year, won the Cy Young. They have David Price, who's had his playoff problems, but he's still one of the best pitchers in the league. And now they have Chris Sale, who's never been in the playoffs. So that's 3 fantastic pitchers you have on your roster to start in your rotation in the playoffs. Because that's where I'm looking. The Red Sox more than likely are going to make the playoffs unless they have a ton of injuries to some of their stars. So they'll be a force, and they'll be a good and fun team to watch all season. They have the hitting. Now they have the pitching. They already had a pretty solid bullpen. So, right off the bat, there's another team. We mentioned 2 teams so far. These could be the 2 teams in the World Series next year based on the pitching and based on their entire rosters. Big move for the Red Sox. They tend to make these big moves. They don't care to rebuild and do that kind of stuff. They're a very good team, and they did a good job. Speaking of other White Sox getting traded, and we'll move on to a host of moves that the Washington Nationals made, but one of the moves that they made that kind of caught a lot of people's eyes was they traded for the White Sox center fielder Adam Eaton, and in my opinion, they traded way too much for him. Adam Eaton, very good center fielder, very kind of analytical player, not the kind of Trouts you see they're hitting a bunch of home runs, they're batting 350. They're not Harper who's smashing balls 500. He's kind of a base hit hitter. Can hit home runs, has some pop, gets on base a lot, stolen base threat, defensive kind of player, good defender. That's what I mean. But the Washington Nationals traded Lucas Giolito, who most of the season last year was the #1 prospect according to Baseball America. That's ahead of Yoan Moncada, who just got traded for Chris Sale, Corey Seager, who was the Rookie of the Year and an MVP candidate, and Julio Urias, another great starting pitcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He was better than all of them. So to trade him for a guy like Adam Eaton is ridiculous in its own right. I can understand it 1v1, but they also traded their #6 prospect, Dane Dunning, and they also traded a very good young fireball pitcher, Reynaldo Lopez, as well. 3 guys for a guy that is not better than 3 guys they already have in their lineup. And I'm talking about Daniel Murphy, I'm talking about Jason Worth, and I'm talking about Bryce Harper. Also, Trey Turner's pretty good, too. So I didn't understand that much. I guess they really just wanted specifically Adam Eaton because they traded too much. They'd been rumored to be guys that were in the hunt for Chris Sale. They were rumored to be in talks with Andrew McCutchen, the center fielder for Pittsburgh. What I'm guessing happened is that Pittsburgh said, no, what you're offering to us is not enough. So, and I'm guessing they offered this exact same thing for McCutchen. They said no, so they said, oh, we'll probably get Eaton as well. Your thoughts on just kind of trading a ton of really good prospects for a guy like Eaton?
Nick, that is what I call highway robbery.
Yep.
And yes, the White Sox, completely robbed them.
Yep.
For me, it doesn't make sense because listen, I understand, if you're making this trade to get a Clayton Kershaw or a Mike Trout or someone of that magnitude that is going to not, almost single-handedly change your franchise. But when you're doing it for a player like Adam Eaton, and this is no disrespect to Adam Eaton, but like you had mentioned, he's more of a utility player. He's going to get hits and he's going to get on base, yes. But is he going to 25, 30 home runs in a season? Probably not. To me, the farm system is where you build for your future. Obviously, teams want to win now, but if you don't have a good farm system, look at the Angels. Back in 2002, when they had won the World Series, they had one of the best farm systems in baseball. I believe they're ranked in the top 5. Over the years leading up to now, they literally have one of the worst farm systems. And
it's
because
horrible.
And yeah,
it's
okay.
horrible.
And because of that, they have had horrible seasons for the last 2 or 3 years. So to me, you have to be able to build from within and not always trade away. Because the moment that you start trading away is when you're more than likely not going to get back like your value in return. So I'm not sure what these Nationals are thinking. Adam Eaton, all I got to say is you better have a damn good year, or else a lot of other people are going to be thinking the way that Nick and I think right now. If I'm Bryce Harper, I'm going, what are we doing right now?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. We'll talk about Harper in just a second. I just want to let you guys know what Eaton's stats were last year, and actually the last 2 years. Talk about consistency. Listen to this. The last 2 seasons, Adam Eaton has had 14 home runs. He's had around 56 RBIs, and he's batted around 285. His on-base percentage was also 361 both seasons. He also hits-wise, 175 hits in 2015, 176 hits in 2016. So I guess you're getting consistency. But does that sound like a player you should be trading for major prospects? A guy that's 14-60 and batting 285 with non-base percentage is 360. No.
Nope.
It's not. It's ridiculous. And what's funny is the Chris Sale, who's a far better player than Adam Eaton. Obviously, Chris Sale doesn't play every day. But Chris Sale, every single day, you're saying Chris Sale is better than Adam Eaton. He was traded in a similar trade to the Red Sox. That's what doesn't make sense. Is they made a trade with Boston. The White Sox made a trade with Boston where they got similar players for a deserved star, and then the Nationals come in and they say, "Oh no, we want the same thing for Eaton," and they just gave it to him. It's ridiculous. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Let's move on to Harper though. And you mentioned what's Harper thinking? Well, Harper demanded that the Washington Nationals give him $400 million a year when his next contract's up, and Nationals essentially said, no, we're not going to do that. So The Nationals not only lost a lot of their top prospects, they not only lost Danny Espinosa to the Angels this past week because Espinosa didn't want to play for the team anymore. They also are more than likely going to lose Bryce Harper. So what thought to be a superstar team before the offseason started with all these rumors about McCutchen and Sale and all that stuff and then with guys like Giolito coming up the ranks, now they're potentially going to be not very good in a couple of years. Your thoughts on Harper asking for a lot of money and your thoughts on the Nationals saying nope?
$400 million. I can't really wrap.
Sounds like a lot of money to me.
Yeah, can't really wrap my brain around that one. Yeah, Bryce Harper, you are one of the best players in the league. Next to Mike Trout, the two best outfielders probably in the league. $400 million. I think you have to look at it as, okay, I want to be paid for my production, but I also want my team to be able to go out and sign other players. This isn't basketball to where LeBron James can just jump from team to team and continue to be in the playoffs and then going for championship runs every year. In baseball, you need your supporting cast around you. You need good pitching. You also need good hitting and other good fielders around you. So for Harper, I think you need to pull the reins back a little bit. You know, you're still going to get paid, my man, through your endorsements. And, oh, my gosh, even if he goes down from $400 to $300 million, I think you're going to be okay, buddy. You'll be able to take care of your family. So for him, I think you need to look at it from that aspect a little bit more. Yeah, if I'm the Washington Nationals, there's no way in heck I'm giving him $400 million. No. I would let him really walk if they really just couldn't come to an agreement. So, yeah, I think eventually if Harper wants to stay, they will come to an agreement. But who knows, if he stays firm and he wants his number, more than likely when his contract is up, he will not be playing for Washington.
No, and the one thing I'm going to knock on Harper here is that if he would have asked for $400 million the year after he was named the MVP, it makes sense. He was disappointing last year. He did not have a $40 million a year. He didn't even have a $20 million a year. That kind of sounded. I mixed it up. It sounded weird when I said that. You know what I'm talking about, though. So for him to ask, and then they didn't get far in the playoffs either, too. So for him to ask for that much money after this season, I could understand why the Nationals wouldn't say yes. But the thing is, they're losing too much now. Like they now have traded for a very average center fielder. They lost their closer to San Francisco. They lost prospects. They lost I'm blanking who the Espinosa as well.
Yes.
So they're they still have good players like I mentioned. They still have guys like Daniel Murphy, Trey Turner, Jason Worth, and they still have Harper. But it just really what looked like I said, a very good team for the future, and right now is now looking like a team that absolutely needs to win the World Series right now, or they're screwed.
Yeah.
So, they need to figure out what's going on, or they need to negotiate with Harper. But I'm pretty sure his agent is Scott Boras, so he's probably going to get that $40 million somewhere, and it's probably going to be the Yankees, or it's going to be someone like the Dodgers who can actually shell out the money. Nationals don't have that much money, so they're not going to more than likely do it. All right, moving on. A couple other interesting signings were Dexter Fowler getting signed with the St. Louis Cardinals, and we'll get back to him in just a second. I want to tell a story about what he kind of went through. Obviously, we mentioned this earlier. Aroldis Chapman going to the Yankees in the largest deal ever for a closer. Giannis Cespedes is staying with the Mets for over $100 million. Ian Desmond's going to the Rockies. So a couple other interesting signings with guys going to different teams besides Cespedes staying. Everyone thought he'd go to a different team. He's staying. But the interesting thing about Fowler was Fowler obviously coming from the world champion Cubs. When he came into the offseason last year, he signed an offer sheet. He just signed a qualifying offer because nobody wanted to sign him. And I remember that video of him showing up unbeknownst to all the Cubs players at spring training the first day, where he showed up and they all cheered him, and it was great. But he signed a one-year deal betting on himself. Then he goes out. He's the leadoff hitter for the team with the best record in the league, the Cubs. He goes out, has a great playoff season, hits a huge leadoff home run in that Game 7. was undoubtedly one of the leaders. I heard he was one of the guys doing speeches when they went into that rain delay in Game 7. So he bet on himself. He got his money, and he's going to St. Louis. I don't really care that he left Chicago because he was only signed there for 1 year. He did what he wanted to do. He won a championship. But now he got paid, and he totally deserved to get paid, and I love to hear stories like this.
Oh, yeah. No, I completely agree 100%. When guys bet on themselves and it works out, it's really, really neat to see. Unfortunately, when you do bet on yourself, sometimes, there's a risk of injury, and then you're not going to get paid that following year. Obviously, the best of the best happened for him. He stayed healthy. He had a solid year, and he won a World Series for the Cubs for the first time, obviously, in over 100 years. So all those things came to life for him, and now he gets to get paid. Unfortunately for the Cubs, he's going to a rival.
Yeah.
So the Cubs aren't going to like that. But you have to be able to respect him in a sense that he said, hey, listen, I will play and show the Cubs and other teams that I'm worth what what I'm desiring. And obviously the Cardinals saw that, and they were able to pay him. So kudos to you, my man.
Yeah, another guy that kind of did that was Justin Turner. Turner actually signed a minor league deal with the Dodgers. I believe it was 3 years ago now. And so now he's earning $16 million. So you love to hear these stories. It's one of the big things. It doesn't happen in a lot of sports because a lot of sports don't allow you just to sign 1-year deals. He did it, and he got paid. Speaking of the Cubs, though, we weren't going to mention this. I just remembered this. Wade Davis, star closer, going to the Cubs for Jorge Soler, kind of an extra outfielder for them. So the Cubs, after losing Chapman to the Yankees, get a very good closer in Wade Davis as well. So a couple of signings that we wanted you to know. Dexter Fowler signing with St. Louis, Chapman to the Yankees, Cespedes to the Mets, and Wade Davis obviously getting traded to the Cubs. For this final segment here on the Cover 2 podcast, we want to give you our final thought, and it will just be something that we come up with off the top of our heads right now here at the end of the show. So I will start it off. I want to congratulate San Clemente High School for finally getting a CIF championship after 5 tries. San Clemente led by USC commit Jack Sears, the next Sam Darnold. And now they're going to be playing in the state championship up in Sacramento. So good for them. It's really good to see a South Orange County high school that's been struggling for a long time. They lost a lot of championship games. They never could get to state, and they finally did. So good for Jack Sears in San Clemente and Jaime Ortiz, the head coach over there. I also want to give a shout out to St. John Bosco, who is also in the final after beating Mater Dei in the game of the century 2 weeks ago. They are going to be in the state final this weekend as well, playing De La Salle, Maurice Jones-Drew's alma mater, also Mercedes Lewis, a couple of UCLA guys.
Yes.
And so that's another big game. Shout out those two teams from the southern section. They're going to be playing for state championships this weekend.
And my final thought is for all sports fans around the world. Doesn't matter what sport you watch. Particularly, I'm going to be talking about the NFL right now, and I'm going to be a little bit of a homer talking about my Cowboys. After their loss on Sunday night to the Giants, there were many, many Cowboys fans on social media and all throughout who immediately were saying, "Oh, Dak can't play. Dak this, Dak that. Put Romo back in. Romo's our leader. We need to get him back going." These were the same people, by the way, who for the last 11 games have just been completely, "Oh, Dak's the savior. We love Dak. Who needs Tony Romo? Tony Romo who?" I don't understand this whole flip-flop. 1 week I'm with this guy, 1 week I'm with another guy type deal. You take the good with the bad. He's still a rookie, okay? There's always going to be somewhat of a rookie wall, especially for a quarterback. The more film that teams get on players, the better they're going to be able to game plan and execute. So, yes, he's had, the last couple games, he hasn't had the same stats and same numbers that he's had in the early part of the season. But guess what? That doesn't mean he's a bad quarterback. That doesn't mean that Tony Romo needs to automatically come in. I'm tired of fans jumping ship so quickly. give this kid some time. All right, it's midway through the year. Every team is banged up, so they're just trying to, make it into the playoffs, and then it's a whole new season from there. So the point is, fans, shut up, sit back, let Dak do what he wants, not do what he wants to do, but let Dak come back and handle this. You know what I mean? I think he's mature enough to understand that, hey, I haven't played well in the last couple games, but he's got Tony Romo in his ear. He's got Jason Garrett and the rest of his entire team behind him. Let him prove that, hey, I can come back from a couple poor games and produce like we should. So, fans, get your act straight.
We need more Skip Baylesses out there. Just say the Cowboys are going to win a Super Bowl every year. Okay, that's the kind of fans the Cowboys need. All right, Jared, fiery at the end of the show. That will do it for this edition of the Cover 2 podcast. We will be doing the next edition either live on OC Rock Radio on Friday from 3:30 to 5:30, or we will once again do it crammed in the studio over on the other side of Saddleback College as well. So this has been the Cover 2 podcast. I'm Nick Nenad.
And I'm Jared Smith.
And have a great rest of your week.